Considering she has friends like Ilhan, Omar, and Rashida Tlaib, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez made some stunning accusations against President Trump this weekend. Mitt Romney stepped up his attacks on the president, and the September jobs report shows that, unlike Romney, President Trump is actually doing his job. All that and more. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.
And God bless the United States of America.
All right, friends, welcome to the show. I hope you had a great weekend. We're going to jump right in with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez because this is just rich, all right? She's part of the squad, right? That includes Ilhan, Omar, and Rashida Tlaib, people that have made blatantly anti-Semitic comments, okay? They're anti-Israel. They say this stuff all the time. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says nothing about it, but now she's come out over the weekend and says that President Trump is anti-Semitic. It's just stunning. And here's an example. Here's a tweet from Saturday. She said, "Understand that Trump is engaged in deliberate, atrocious, targeted anti-Semitism towards Chairman Schiff. Then ask yourself why no one cares to denounce it, especially when his accusation of it towards others drove full news cycles earlier this year." Okay, there's a lot we can analyze on that, but a few minutes later, she added this tweet. She wrote, "It's wrong, it's harmful, and his bigotry is reflective of the white supremacist base he relies on for political gain." Okay, so let's dissect this. She says targeted anti-Semitism against Schiff. All right, it's just absolutely nuts. Again, Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib say stuff all the time, and they are never called on it. President Trump calls out a guy for lying and being corrupt, and he's the anti-Semite, he's anti-Jewish. It makes no sense. And in the tweet that I posted, you see that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez references an article, all right? This article is from a left-wing publication called The Intercept, and here is what they wrote in this article that spurred Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on to write the stuff she did. Here's her report. It says, "To be clear, more than 200 House Democrats have signed on an impeachment inquiry, and yet the president chose to target only 3 of them by name, 2 of whom are Jewish, Adam Schiff and Gerald Nadler, chairs of the House Intelligence and Judiciary Committees. The third target was, surprise, a woman of color, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Shamefully, he tagged all of them as savages. How is such rhetoric not racist?" How? Maybe because these are the people that continually attack the president. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, whether she's black, white, brown, doesn't matter. She is going after the president all the time, saying ridiculous things. Schiff and Nadler are chairing the committees that are going after the president for impeachment. And as we've seen, Schiff and these guys, they just make stuff up and the media just falls right for it. It's absolutely outrageous. So here's more, though, from The Intercept, okay? It says, on October 2nd, Trump escalated his brazenly anti-Semitic attack on Schiff. "We don't call him Shifty Schiff for nothing," the president told reporters in the Oval Office. "He's a shifty, dishonest guy." All right, so here's the thing. Adam Schiff is a dishonest Democrat, and he's shown it. On a previous show, I showed you his opening statement on the House Intelligence Committee, where he just absolutely made up stuff regarding the Ukrainian phone call. He later had to step back and say, "Oh, he's just joking. It was just a parody." He made up stuff. Then on MSNBC, when asked about if he ever had contact with the whistleblower, here's what he said.
We have not spoken directly with the whistleblower. We would like to, but I'm sure the whistleblower has concerns that he has not been advised as the law requires.
So according to that, Schiff or his committee never met with the whistleblower, and we all know this is 100% not true. The Washington Post, which does their fact check and gives a rating of 1 to 4 Pinocchios by how big the lie is, actually came out and gave him the max, gave him 4 Pinocchios on this statement. Here's a report from the Washington Post. It says, "But Schiff on Morning Joe clearly made a statement that was false. He now says he was answering the wrong question, but if that was the case, he should have quickly corrected the record. He compounded his falsehood by telling reporters a few days later that if not for the IG's office, the committee would not have known about the complaint. That again suggested there had been no prior communication. The explanation that Schiff was not sure it was the same whistleblower especially strains credulity. Schiff earns 4 Pinocchios. So there you go. Schiff's flat out lying about the president. President Trump calls him on it. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez steps forward and says that President Trump is the one who's being anti-Semitic. I mean, this is a president who has a Jewish son-in-law who's done more for Israel than any recent president in memory. And she attacks President Trump. And again, gives her friends passes on all the terrible stuff they say. It's just, I don't know, it's just stunning. But she's not the only one who's, having, crazy tweets this weekend. Mitt Romney is at it again, and we covered him on a previous show. He just, for some reason, with all the attacks going on from the left, media, Democrats, and everything, he wants to jump on that train. Rather than defend the president or just defend conservatism or his party, of which President Trump is the leader, he decides to attack the president. It makes no sense. So on Friday, Mitt Romney tweeted this. He says, when the only American citizen President Trump singles out for China's investigation is his political opponent in the midst of the Democratic nomination process, it strains credulity to suggest that it is anything other than politically motivated. All right. So Mitt Romney added this other tweet to that statement. He said, by all appearances, the president's brazen and unprecedented appeal to China and to Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden is wrong and appalling. Okay, so first of all, this stuff that went on with China and with Ukraine and with the Bidens went on under President Obama's watch. And no one is investigating Obama or Biden or his son or anything. And then Mitt Romney says, of all people, to pick out one citizen, well, that citizen was vice president of the United States at the time that this is going on. We are talking about corruption. We are talking about blackmail, basically. And all of a sudden, now Mitt Romney is on the side of the Bidens and not pushing for an investigation. Why not push for an investigation to all of this? It makes no sense. So, of course, President Trump, being President Trump, fired back, and he put out some tweets. And here's what he said. He said, somebody please wake up Mitt Romney and tell him that my conversation with the Ukrainian president was a congenial and very appropriate one, and my statement on China pertained to corruption, not politics. If Mitt worked this hard on Obama, he would have won. Sadly, he choked. So, and then a few minutes later, President Trump added this. Mitt Romney never knew how to win. He is a pompous who has been fighting me from the beginning, except when he begged me for my endorsement for his Senate run. I gave it to him. And when he begged me to be Secretary of State, I didn't give it to him. He is so bad for ours. Okay, so this is what happens when you take on the establishment. And we've seen it from the moment President Trump was elected. We even saw it from the time when he was kind of distancing himself in the primaries. And it was basically, he was one of the front runners. But ever since the nomination, ever since he's been elected, you see what happens when you take on the establishment. And I'm talking about the media, the Democrats, the far left, and also the deep state entrenched bureaucrats who get there so long and they end up going left all the time. He's battling all of those. And then on top of that, he battles establishment Republicans like Mitt Romney, who'd rather blast him, rather blast his own party than stand up against the establishment, the left, and actually try and get things done, try and clean house. It makes no sense at all. So meanwhile, while he's doing that, the September jobs report came out on Friday. And I want to go over those. I've been going over those with you so you get a sense of how the economy is doing under President Trump. And the numbers have been the growth has been great. Unemployment's going down. And here's some comments straight from President Trump.
And they're the best numbers we've had in over 50 years. The unemployment number is down to 3.5%. So that goes way, way back. We haven't had numbers like this in a long time. Wages are up by almost 3%. That's a fantastic increase for everybody out there working.
All right, that was from the president. And so to get into the numbers a little bit more, I found this report from cnsnews.com. And here's what they have to say. They said for the 22nd time since Donald Trump took office, the number of employed Americans reached a record high last month, climbing 319,000 from August's record, 157.8 million to 158.27 million. At the same time, the number of unemployed Americans set a Trump-era low at 5.77 million. Those two strong numbers pushed the nation's unemployment rate to 3.5% in September, down 0.2 of a point from last month, and the lowest rate since December 1969. Okay, that's 50 years, folks. 50 years, we're at 3.5% for the unemployment rate. And CNSnews.com has more. Here's more. It says, the unemployment rate for Hispanics, 3.9% in September, has never been this low. The unemployment rate for blacks remained at a record low of 5.5% set in August. Among the other major worker groups, the unemployment rate for whites declined to 3.2% last month. For adult men, the jobless rate was 3.2%, adult women 3.1%, teenagers 12.5%, Asians 2.5%. In September, average hourly earnings for all employees on private non-farm payrolls dropped 1 cent to 28.09, following an 11-cent rise in August. Over the past 12 months, average hourly earnings have increased 2.9%. So the whole idea when Democrats say that middle class is getting squeezed out and everything, wages rose 2.9%. It's incredible growth across all sectors. And the Democrats want to, they can't argue any of that, so they make up stuff. I mean, they'll make up issues that are non-issues like wage disparity. With all this growth in the middle class, they'll target that the so-called rich are doing great. So we need to, there must be something wrong because, oh yeah, the middle class is growing, but not as much as the rich. Well, who cares? If you're a middle class guy and your wages keep going up and up and up, that's all that matters. You and your family, your well-being, your savings, your retirement, it's all going up. Stock market's going up. That means your 401ks are going up. And the Democrats would rather pit people against each other rather than saying, hey, this economy is working up and down the spectrum. So it's just crazy. So finally, I want to talk about some FBI statistics that came out that really put in perspective this whole narrative that the media and the left keeps pushing about rifles like the AR-15 and other things like that. So this is from Law Enforcement Today, and they put out some FBI stats that show just how dangerous knives and clubs and things like that are. So check out this report. It says, according to the FBI, more than 5 times as many people were killed in 2018 by knives, clubs, and other cutting instruments than rifles. The metrics show that there were a total of 1,515 deaths by knives and other cutting instruments. Compare that to 297 people killed by rifles. It's a gap that widened significantly over 2017. In that year, the FBI said nearly 4 times as many people were stabbed to death as killed with rifles. During that year, the number of murders with rifles was around 400. All right, that's the sharp stuff, okay? Knives and other cutting instruments. What about the blunt stuff? All right, check this out. More than 100 more people were killed with hammers and clubs in 2018 than were killed by rifles. There were 443 people killed with hammers, clubs, and other blunt objects. We need to point out that all the data isn't just semi-automatic rifles, it's all rifles, including bolt action, pump, lever action rifles as well. If you were to contrast the numbers between just semi-automatic rifles and knife homicides, the gap would be even larger. Okay, so we covered knives and sharp stuff. We covered clubs, hammers, blunt stuff. What about no stuff? They've got stats for that too. Check this out. The data also shows that in 2018, there were 672 deaths from fists, feet, and other personal weapons, which once again is more than rifles. In 2017, there were 692 people killed in the same way, a number larger than the total number of homicides by rifles and shotguns combined. So there you go, folks. It's time to ban knives, clubs, hammers, and even fists. Fists do more damage to people than rifles. There's your stats. Think about that. Our next show is on Wednesday. I hope you enjoyed this one. Please subscribe, and when you do, please hit that bell so you'll be notified, and we'll see you next time. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-Minute News Hour. Okay, friends, just a little reminder before you go, and no, this does not count against my 13 minutes. Please hit the subscribe button below and tell your friends. And if you happen to miss our last show, you can check it out right here. And also for great conservative news and commentary, please check out GOPUSA.com. All right, folks, we'll see you on the next show. Have a great day.